I was the CEO of Diplomats. I made Diplomats with him. I was with him for every bit of his journey. I held him down. I took that position of holding him down. He needed to go on a diet. He needed to get his life together. He needed to go to the doctor and get a physical. He looked terrible, bad body, back ass. He looked big around the neck. Waist looked crazy. I'm body shaming his. You heard? He needed to go get his shit together, get on the treadmill, do some push-ups, do something. You heard? Especially for playing with me.
Welcome back. Harlem's blazing again, my Oz, and this time, the fire's all about Mase, Camron, and Jim Jones. The internet's in meltdown mode, with fans calling this the most ruthless Harlem takedown of the year. It all started when Jim got a little too slick in a recent interview, throwing shade like it was nothing, and saying Mase and Cam weren't doing numbers anymore, that their moment had passed. Big mistake. That kind of talk cuts deep when you're all from the same Harlem blocks that raised you. See, Mase and Cam, they don't just let disrespect slide, especially when it comes from one of their own. So instead of posting subliminals, they did what real Harlem legends do. Handled it live, on their own turf, on It Is What It Is, in front of a hyped up crowd, and wow, it got ugly fast. At first, everything felt light, Cam cracking jokes, Mase doing that smooth, calm preacher talk, but the second Jim's name dropped, the whole vibe flipped. Cam leaned in, eyes locked, voice sharp, and said,
"I was a fan. You begged us. You are a fan, nigga. A fan. So you gonna sit around and act like you've been around all this Harlem and everything? You ever see somebody from Harlem try to act like they from Harlem so bad that you gotta keep saying, I'm from Harlem? From Harlem, know who's from Harlem. You don't have to keep saying you from Harlem. Yeah, listen, man, listen. You were fanned out and you begged niggas to come to your house after you heard all these mixtapes. That's how you got in. Mase actually taught you how to rap. Literally. He taught you how to rap.
Mase taught me how to rap.
You say it. We taught you how to rap. How you ran the whole organization. How you made Diplomats. Yeah, you ain't make none of this stuff. You was a fan. That's how you got down originally. Period. I heard the new shit you did. Yo, you want to come through? Come through. Why? Why are we going to Jomo's house? So yeah, I would bring some bitches over there sometime. Little back man.
Yo, Jim been talking reckless lately, right? The room froze. You could feel the air tighten. Then Mase hit back with that cold grin. Yeah, I heard he forgot who taught him this. Boom, classic Harlem talk. The crowd lost it, laughter mixing with gasps. That mix of tension and swagger only Harlem can pull off. And then Mase went for the jugular. He started laying out history like receipts, saying Jim been out here rewriting Harlem's legacy like he built something that was already there. He said, when I was on tour with Biggie, Jim was still trying to get on the guest list. That line sent shockwaves through the room, people screaming, laughing, and clutching their phones like they just saw a ghost. Cam wasn't about to stay quiet either. He jumped in and roasted Jim like it was comedy night uptown.
That put hands on you and you get to altercation, you cool with them. You tried to chase French Montana out the game, that ain't work out. Y'all got cool. So cool that you go to his video shoot, pardon me, not his video shoot, his movie. You're sitting in the crowd watching the premiere and they dissing you in the movie. You in the movie getting dissed and you gotta eat it, just sitting in the crowd. Nah, they dissing you in the movie that you went to go see, bro. Every nigga that do something to put pressure on you, you sit there and work it out. But when they got a little genuine heart for you and all that, cool, that's the pattern. If they don't put hands on you, then you can keep going on and on and on. But the niggas who do this, you cool with, and then the niggas who try to handle it sophisticatedly, you keep going on and on like niggas give a f about all that shit, bro. So, don't care about none of that shit, man. Don't care a little bit, man. What I'll finish with is this, man. I'm never here to downplay your character. As much as you try to degrade my character for years and push me under the bus and say, I ain't start this and I ain't do that, and you started Pink and you made the Diplomats, which is just... Do you ever hear me talk about when you ran on me when BMF pulled up? When you ran in the hotel, they chased you to the beach. They chased you to the beach, you was in the sand. You was getting wet from the water, from the ocean. I don't pump that. I don't pump all that shit. Because I ain't trying to make the great Camron. You know why? Because the revolution was televised. That's why I'm here. That's why God worked like that. That's why me and Murder is here. The revolution was televised.
Every few years, he said, Jim reinvent himself like an IG influencer. 1 year a rapper, next a podcaster, then suddenly a real estate mogul. Pick a lane, bro. The crowd went wild. Harlem chaos, pure and unfiltered. This wasn't just a diss, it was a statement. The crowd lost its mind. It was pure Harlem mayhem. Even the camera crew couldn't hold it together, cracking up behind the lenses. Fans online were eating it up, saying Mase and Cam bodied Jim without even dropping a single curse word. But then, out of nowhere, Mase switched the energy and his tone got cold, sharp, personal. He said Jim been carrying bitterness ever since Dipset crumbled, blaming everybody but himself. He reminded everyone what real Harlem heads already knew. Jim was never the front man. That spotlight was always Cam's lane, and no matter how many singles or designer fits Jim rocked, that fact never changed. Then Mase hit him with that line that shook the whole room. Now he mad we doing it again, this time without him. Boom, the crowd exploded. Since linking up for It Is What It Is, Mase and Cam have been unstoppable. Viral every week, major guests, insane views. Meanwhile, Jim's been throwing slick shots from the sidelines, trying to keep up with a wave he once rode. But that episode wasn't just content, it was Harlem history in motion. Once the clip dropped, the internet went ballistic. Fans flooded the comments calling it a Harlem history lesson and saying Jim just got humbled in 4K. One comment read, Jim been talking too much, he forgot who raised him. Another said, Cam and Mase just dragged him straight back to 2002.
It gets kind of crazy with the lies. The lies be going crazy on the internet.
I mean, well, the lies start from a narrative, and the narrative starts from a person, and you just got to look at it like that. But I've never been one in my life to care about clearing up no rumors. Like, that just takes time out of my day for making money. I know who I am. I'm very comfortable in my skin. I stand 10 toes down on everything I believe in. I don't change my pivot, and everybody knows that. I mean, as you can see, I would not be here if I did anything else but be me.
I was at Jim album release party, and everybody was over there with Jim, and Cam is standing over here with like 3 or 4 people just looking on and couldn't believe that Jim is the guy. There's no Dipset without Jim. Jim is the gangbanger of the crew. Cam is not a blood. I don't even know if Jewels was. I doubt Freaky was, right? But the set, it comes from the gang shit. Right? All the gang all ran under Jim.
Right.
All of the muscle was Jim. That wasn't Cam. You know what I'm saying?
Cam was like the Jay-Z.
Cam was the artist. Jim and Cam were partners, so to speak. But Jim took the role of being the underboss, the muscle, to make sure that Cam could function and move around and not have a bad reputation, or you be getting robbed and all this other stuff. So Jim put he stood front line for anything in regards to Cam, and then he put Dipset in front of Cam.
Cam and Jim history go back before me. You understand what I'm saying? When I met Cam and Jim, they were super close. So I honestly don't really know Jim being from the Bronx and all that. You know what I'm saying? When I met them, they was in 5H, which is, you know what I'm saying, Jim's apartment, and that's, you know, like, I guess that time was after all the stuff Cam had said already with the Children of the Corn and Jim, you know, whatever he said, you know what I'm saying? So, like I said, when I got there, Cam and Jim was like this, super tight. Mase wasn't even in the picture. I don't know Mase like that. You know what I'm saying? Every time I seen Mase, it's been a mutual, you know what I'm saying, respect there. So, you know, that's what that's been as far as me and Mase. You know what I'm saying? As far as, yeah, when I met Cam and Jim, they were already Trump tight and locked in. You understand what I'm saying? The Diplomats was already a name they had. You know what I'm saying? I don't sit there and claim I made the dip, so that's not something I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? I made Dipset though, the two. Yeah, I did that. You know what I'm saying?
The chaos online was unreal. TikTok, X, Instagram, even the gossip blogs all jumped in, turning that roast into a full-blown cultural event. Of course, Jim saw it too, and you could tell he was heated. He hopped on IG Live that same night, trying to laugh it off, saying, "I don't got no beef with them dudes." They just old heads mad cause they not outside no more. But fans weren't buying that act for a second. The comment section turned savage. People saying he looked frustrated, kept repeating himself, and was trying too hard to seem cool while clearly losing his composure. One fan nailed it perfectly. You can't out-talk Cam and Mase. They do this for a living, and that's facts. Those two mastered the Harlem art of mixing comedy, truth, and swagger like nobody else in the game. But what really gave the whole thing depth was the history behind it, because this wasn't just internet drama. This was decades of Harlem pride colliding. See, this goes back to the 90s, when Harlem was overflowing with talent. Mase and Cam were part of Big L's legendary crew, Children of the Corn, before Mase linked with Diddy and became a bad boy superstar. Jim came into the picture later with Dipset, and for a while the chemistry was magic. Hit after hit, world tours, Harlem shining again. But fame, money, and ego, they'll test any crew, and over time, that brotherhood cracked. What once felt like family slowly turned into a cold war. So when Jim decided to come for Mase and Cam, it wasn't just a new feud, it was old Harlem pride reigniting. Mase knew exactly where to strike, calling Jim out for acting self-made while standing on someone else's foundation. You can't call yourself the king of Harlem when you learned the game from the real ones. And that line? That one hit harder than any punchline, straight to the heart of Harlem legacy. The crowd went absolutely insane. That line hit the culture like a thunderclap. Fans were saying Mase was just speaking raw truth. Let's be real, Mase and Cam had already stamped themselves as Harlem royalty long before Jim even found his voice. By the next morning, every major hip-hop page had the same headline plastered across their feed. Mase and Cam Cook Jim Jones live on air. Some even said it was career-ending. No amount of PR cleanup could wash off that burn. Desperate to save face, Jim tried firing back by posting old Dipset photos, trying to prove he'd been part of the foundation since day one. But fans weren't buying it at all. They flooded his comments clowning him, saying he looked like the forgotten cousin in every pic. Then Jim doubled down, posting captions like, "Real ones know the truth." But Mase wasn't letting that slide. He came back smooth but savage on the very next It Is What It Is episode. He looked straight into the camera and said, "Bro, pictures don't equal presence." You can't post your way back to relevance. The audience went crazy. That was surgical precision. Then came the knockout punch. Mase leaned forward with that preacher-like calm and dropped the line that broke the internet. "You can't win an argument with me. I'm the one who taught you how to rap pretty and talk slick." Boom, another viral moment locked in history. Cam couldn't stay quiet either. He jumped in laughing but deadly serious underneath it all. Jim always act like he discovered himself, he said. But we gave him the glow up, we gave him the wave, we even gave him the confidence. Then he flipped and started acting like we the ones chasing him. The audience erupted, a pure chaos Harlem style. It felt like years of unspoken tension finally got aired out for the world to see. Harlem pride was on full display. Loud, flashy, and unapologetic. Even people who'd never picked sides before started chiming in. Rappers, influencers, comedians, everyone reposting clips and calling it the most respectful destruction ever. And they were right, not because Mase and Cam didn't come from hate, they came from truth. This wasn't pettiness, it was legacy talk, a reminder of who the real pillars of Harlem culture are. But what really cut deep for Jim wasn't just the words, it was the power behind them. Mase and Cam owned the stage, the platform, and the people's attention. Every time they talk, the culture stops to listen, but every time Jim posts, it feels like he's chasing a moment that already passed. Fans started saying it out loud. The Harlem hierarchy just shifted. And the painful part? They weren't wrong. Jim went from front and center to sliding down that Harlem ladder, while Mase and Cam stood tall, running the city once again. By the end of the week, the internet had turned it into a circus. Memes flooded every feed, people calling it Jim Jones versus the podcasters, and joking that Mase just baptized Jim with jokes. Others were ruthless, saying Jim needs to go back to the booth because the internet clearly ain't his arena. Trying to save face, Jim dropped a freestyle a few days later, but it flopped hard. The numbers barely moved and fans weren't feeling it. You can't rap your way out of humiliation when your name's trending for all the wrong reasons. When the smoke finally cleared, one thing was obvious. Mase and Cam won this round, and they did it with straight Harlem class. They didn't yell, didn't threaten, they used humor, facts, and that smooth Harlem finesse to break down Jim's ego live on camera. Fans said it best. They buried him with smiles. Even people outside the hip-hop scene started watching, calling it a masterclass in calm destruction. But underneath all the laughs was a deeper message. This wasn't about clout, it was about legacy. Mase and Cam spent decades shaping Harlem's identity, the music, the culture, the entire vibe, while Jim spent years chasing trends and validation. That's why this one stung different. It wasn't just a clapback, it was a reality check. In Harlem, respect isn't something you buy, it's something you earn. And when your own people say you fell off, that sting doesn't fade easy. Then Mase closed the show with a line that froze the whole room. I don't hate Jim, I just hate revisionists. If you was there, tell the truth. If you wasn't, stop lying like you built the building. The internet went spinning off that bar, like memes, quotes, captions everywhere. It wasn't petty, it was poetic truth, delivered sharp and smooth. Cam just nodded and said, "That's why we legends. We don't need no gimmicks." The crowd exploded, and the kind of applause that felt like Harlem itself stood up and clapped. Since then, Jim's been silent. No lives, no interviews, no diss tracks, just silence. Some say he's regrouping, others say he finally realized there's no comeback once the truth's been spoken that loud. Because let's be real, when you get publicly reminded who built the very foundation you stand on, that hits deeper than any diss record. This whole saga exposed the real divide between icons and imitators. Mase and Cam built legacies that stand tall decades later, brick by brick, verse by verse. Jim, though, he built moments, flashes that faded just as quick as they came. It Is What It Is didn't just entertain, it proved something. No beats, no hooks, no diss tracks, just a mic, a laugh, and cold, unfiltered Harlem truth. Mase and Cam didn't need drama. Their words alone shifted the entire conversation. Jim can act unbothered all he wants, but Harlem saw it. The internet saw it. Everybody saw it. Mase and Cam didn't just roast him, they rearranged the hierarchy. That's the kind of humiliation no PR team, no flashy chain, no slick freestyle can fix. Because when Harlem legends speak, the whole world listens. And this time the message was crystal clear. Legacy outlasts everything. Even pride. Now, weeks later, the echo of that Harlem showdown still hasn't died down. It's everywhere. Podcasts, reaction channels, and gossip blogs are still replaying clips like it just happened. Every headline keeps circling back to the same point. Mase and Cam didn't just roast Jim, they reclaimed Harlem's crown. Even insiders started talking. People close to Dipset began whispering that Jim took the hit personally, that the silence isn't peace, it's pressure. Some even said he's been calling around behind the scenes, trying to rebuild his image, maybe even plotting his next move. But the problem is, you can't outplan authenticity. Mase and Cam didn't need to strategize. They are the strategy. They've been Harlem's blueprint for 2 decades, while Jim's still trying to rewrite the manual. Fans online started saying it loud. You can't rewrite Harlem history when the authors are still alive. That line started trending by itself. See, the thing that made this clash so powerful wasn't just the jokes. It was the symbolism. It was Harlem versus Harlem, legacy versus image, the teachers versus the student who forgot the lesson. It reminded everyone what made Harlem different. Sharp minds, sharper tongues, and loyalty that used to mean everything. But when that loyalty breaks, the whole city feels it, because Harlem beefs ain't just about music, they're about identity, and that's why this one hit deeper than most. Jim didn't just lose an argument, he lost the narrative. Meanwhile, Mase and Cam keep stacking wins. Their show's bigger than ever, the chemistry sharper, the views insane. Every episode now has fans waiting for that next Harlem moment, that mix of truth and comedy nobody else can deliver. It's like they turned their entire legacy into a live performance. And people can't get enough. Industry folks are even saying what everyone's thinking. It Is What It Is isn't just a podcast anymore, it's Harlem's main stage. Every joke they crack, every story they tell feels like another page of Harlem history being written in real time. And what about Jim? That's where things get tricky, because the longer he stays quiet, the more control he loses. In hip-hop, silence can be powerful, but when you're the one being called out, silence looks like surrender, and fans are noticing. They're saying Jim built his name on loud talk and outside energy, but when it's time to defend it, he's nowhere to be found. That kind of narrative can break an artist's image, not because he's weak, but because perception is the game now. And right now, the perception is ugly. Jim looks like the guy who got outplayed by his own mentors. And in Harlem, that's the kind of stain that don't wash off easy. Still, there's a twist. Some folks close to the situation believe Jim's silence might be calculated. They say he's waiting for the hype to die before dropping something unexpected. Maybe a documentary, maybe a sit-down interview, something big enough to flip the energy. But can he really flip it? That's the million-dollar question. Because this isn't just about clout anymore. It's about credibility. Harlem's watching, the industry's watching, and so far only one side's still commanding the spotlight. Mase and Cam turned a casual jab into a cultural statement. They reminded the game that real legacy doesn't fade, it just updates. And whether people love or hate them, one thing's clear: Harlem listens when they speak. The truth is, Jim Jones might bounce back. He's done it before. But after this kind of public humbling, he's not just fighting for fans, he's fighting for respect. Because once Harlem questions your spot, you don't get to talk your way back into it. You gotta earn it all over again. And right now, the streets are saying Mase and Cam hold the keys. Now here's where it gets even wilder: the ripple effect. That one Harlem clash didn't just stay in Harlem. It spread through the entire industry like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone's talking about old school integrity versus new school validation. Legends, journalists, even rival rappers started picking sides. Some said Jim's just misunderstood, a hustler trying to stay relevant in a digital era. Others argued he lost himself chasing trends that didn't fit his roots. And that's the truth nobody wants to admit. Jim's always been fighting two versions of himself: the Harlem street boss who earned his name in the trenches, and the celebrity version chasing algorithms, sponsorships, and social media approval. Mase and Cam just held up the mirror, and the reflection wasn't pretty. You could see it in how fans reacted online. They weren't just laughing, they were analyzing. Threads popped up breaking down Dipset history, comparing the early days to now, showing how the energy shifted when Mase and Cam left the picture. It was like a cultural investigation, Harlem edition. One tweet went viral saying Cam and Mase showed us what maturity in hip-hop looks like. They didn't yell, they educated. That post hit millions of views. What makes it even deeper is that this moment wasn't about tearing someone down. It was about reminding everyone what Harlem used to represent: confidence with class, hustle with purpose. And Mase, whether people love or hate him, made it clear he's still the voice of Harlem discipline. Meanwhile, Jim's camp tried to keep things low-key, but insiders say he's been frustrated behind the scenes. One source claimed he's been venting privately, saying the whole situation got blown out of proportion, that Mase and Cam used the moment for clicks. But that just made fans laugh even harder, because Mase and Cam don't need clicks. They create them. The funny part, the more Jim tried to downplay it, the more people started rewatching those clips. Every repost brought the same reaction: shock, laughter, and respect for how effortlessly Mase and Cam handled the whole thing. They didn't break character once. They didn't scream, they didn't threaten, they just talked like Harlem elders giving a public reality check wrapped in comedy gold. By now, the debate's turned into something much bigger than beef. It's about legacy, pride, and the way hip-hop handles its own history. Because when the new generation watches this, they're not just seeing drama, they're seeing education in motion. It's Harlem teaching Harlem again. Even OGs from other boroughs have spoken up. Brooklyn rappers saying Harlem finally took the mic back. Bronx legends saying this is what grown man rap energy looks like. The respect is loud, and that's something money can't buy. But for Jim, this might be the hardest chapter of his career yet. He's built off resilience before, bouncing back after setbacks, beefs, and fades. But this one feels different, because this wasn't outsiders tearing him down. It was his own people, the same ones who helped write his story. And that's why the silence hurts him the most. Harlem's always been about pride, but pride without acknowledgement turns into isolation. Fans are saying Jim's biggest battle now isn't against Mase or Cam, it's against his ego. And honestly, they might be right, because at this point, every bar, every post, every move he makes will be seen through one lens, authentic or not. And when the city that built you starts questioning your authenticity, you can't just drop a song to fix it, you gotta live it. So as it stands, the saga's far from over. The streets are whispering, the fans are watching, and Harlem's waiting to see if Jim Jones can bounce back the Harlem way, with class, clarity, and truth. Because one thing's for sure, Mase and Cam just reminded everyone that Harlem doesn't forget, it just waits for you to catch up. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to stay in the loop with all the latest tea. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update, and I'll catch you in the next video.